Wylock here, welcome back. Back in episode 8 we did cave tiles. Recently, a clever guy by the name of Mike Majors posted in DM Scotty's Facebook group his interpretation of them, and they're awesome. A couple of very subtle, simple tweaks to the design makes for a better looking and easier to build tile. Here it is. For these tiles, the foundations will always be 2.5 light by 2.5 light. As in episode 8, cut some 1 1/8 inch chipboard squares and round off the corners generously. Wrap the squares in crinkled tin foil and hot glue them to the foundation, being sure to leave an 1/8 inch gap between them. Apply corrugation cladding. At this point, we'll diverge from episode 8. Now our convention has been that our walls are 3/4 of an inch tall. These chipboard squares have already added some height, and so if you measure, we'll find that our wall pieces only need to be about 3/8 of an inch. So get some single corrugated cardboard and cut strips that are 3/8 of an inch wide and at least 4 inches long. Important note, cut against the corrugation. Now determine how you want to attach it. There are really only 3 kinds of tiles here: a field with no walls, a side wall in which the wall begins and ends at 2 adjacent corners, and a diagonal wall in which the wall begins and ends at 2 opposing corners. Let's do a side wall. Bend and crease the wall piece and eyeball where it's going to go, then cut off the excess. Hot glue it right on top of the squares. Apply the hot glue to the cardboard, not the squares, because that tin foil will cause the glue to cool much faster, and you may not have enough time. Now apply a small amount of hot glue to the wall and tease it upwards with the nozzle, kind of like a stalagmite look. Do the same for the other side. And fill in the exposed corrugation with hot glue. Now at this point I started basing with black paint, but then I had a few other ideas, so I stopped. First, place some rubble piles with the usual white PVA glue, sand, and pebbles. Do 2 or 3 piles per tile, and hit both sides of the wall. Then, cut some half circles out of any kind of cardstock, about a 1/2 inch across. Glue up against the wall as shown. Chase the perimeter of the half circle piece with a bead of hot glue. This makes sort of a font or a pool. Now at this point I figured why not take the opportunity to try something new with regard to painting. So after a lot of experimentation, here's what I came up with. Base the tile in white. Then apply a full coverage coat of a light cream or beige color. I'm using parchment. This is essentially just another base coat. I found that using a soft tip brush was better because it doesn't drag paint along with it nearly as badly. It just glides over anything that's already wet. Alright, now we're going to enter a whole new world. We're going to try a wash. Don't close the window, trust me. So, with the base coats totally dry, we're going to take some burnt umber, or any dark brown, and we're going to dip the brush into water, and don't squeeze out the excess water. Pull out some paint and mix it with the water to make a wash. Apply the wash to the entire tile. You'll see the paint flowing into all the great detail that you've made, and it's a very satisfying feeling when you get it right. Getting the right ratio of paint and water does require a knack, but you'll find that you've mastered it in only a minute or two. Shown here is kind of the amount of coverage that you're aiming for. The great thing about washes is if it's too light or dark, just dab it with paper towel. It comes right off, and you can start over. So here's the set of tiles wet just after the wash. And here they are dry. Note that the color of a wash changes when drying. It loses some hue and is generally darker. Now what we're going to do is apply another wash, so make sure that the first one is totally bone dry. If it's even still a little bit tacky, the paint will return to solution and you'll get a muddled mess. So just leave them overnight. For the second wash, I'm using a lighter, richer brown called Cocoa Bean. You can see the difference between the two on my palette there. Again, mix up a wash, but this time we're not doing full coverage. As shown, just roughly hit the walls and kind of sporadically strike at the squares. Here they are wet, and here they are dry. So the result here is not a sepia ink, but it's a somewhat decent approximation of it. Here they are put together for a quick test, but we're not done yet. For those pools that we made against the walls, I'm going to put on a thick coat of midnight blue, and then while it's still wet, I'm just going to swirl in some very light blue. Now, once dry, I'm going to apply a matte or satin varnish to cover the entire tile. This will protect the paint from scratching. They may look okay right now, but that paint is sitting on tin foil, which comes off very easily. So this layer of varnish will protect it. Finally, since these are caverns, I thought I'd attach some exposed gemstones like crystal veins or geodes or something like that. So again, I'm using flat back Swarovski crystals. And I'm just going to try and stick to 2 or 3 colors to make sure that they complement the pools and the color of the tile. So if you painted your pools green, you might consider gemstones that are maybe green and orange. Those might really tie this tile together. I sort of was aiming for an underdark look, which lately all the rage seems to be blue and purple. And I painted the pools blue, so I'm going to use blue, purple, and clear gems and just kind of randomly pick where they go. Yeah, I'm really happy with how these turned out. All that detail with the tin foil and the hot glue and the sand, and then the wash just sort of makes its own shadows. It's just very cool to see happen as you're painting it. You know, I went round and round experimenting, trying to do my usual base in black and then build the colors up. But going the opposite direction, I've had a lot of fun with it. I think it's very effective. You can see I do place a few gemstones out in the field. I do maybe 1 square per tile and sort of place it not in the center but just in a random spot. And that gives the effect of when you have a room put together like this, you can see it's just the whole room kind of speckles depending on how you're looking at it. Doesn't really come through in the camera, but in person it's really very cool. So these are the first tiles we've done where there's something on the other side of the wall. And on the one hand I don't like that because it doesn't look as clean and it kind of implies that there's something over there. But on the plus side we get versatility because you can do shared walls like this tile in the middle of the screen here. We can do that narrow passageway that doubles back on itself, and all that fits in a very small space. So again, thanks to Mike Majors for this tweak. So simple but so effective. By the way, Mike has a game company called Altered Reality Games. Go check it out, alteredrealitygames.com. I am Wylock, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.